Okay, we started. Now we can
Oh,
talk.
really? We're on the
Now,
internet.
now we can speak freely about all the things we wish to speak about.
Uh, oh, so much. Oh man. No, I'm just kidding. It's nothing at all. I've been watching a lot of like the um animations on HBO Max though. Like they have all like the Justice League and all like the DC animations. God, they're all so good. Well, at least I think they're good. I'm not sure what.
Yeah, honestly, I think HBO Max has really good content in general,
Yeah,
especially like for people who just want to relive
nerd.
parts of their childhood and stuff. I mean, all the Harry Potter movies are on there, and all the Lord of the Rings movies, and
All the
yeah,
Justice League movies. Yeah, all.
all
Yep.
all the animated things that are much better than DC's live action things.
Yeah, they even got the long Halloween. I watched that. Now everything makes sense.
Oh yeah.
Well, it doesn't
Well,
really, not really, but it does like kind of show like it's supposed to be how, at least for me when I was watching, I was like, oh, this is a story about how Gotham is going from being controlled by like these criminal families to being dominated by a bunch of supervillain psychopaths. And I thought that was a pretty interesting story, or at
yeah,
least that's how I interpreted it.
I think I think like their animated like things based on like comic book series used to be way better.
Mm,
And then when the Killing Joke came out, it kind of went downhill pretty
yeah,
drastically.
yeah,
um, and actually, we you saw that with me, right?
yeah. We saw that in theaters. That
Yeah,
was a good. We saw it with Jeffy Boy, and his girl.
yeah, and I think one of our coworkers came as well.
I believe it was Daniela. Actually, I think she
Yeah,
saw it. Yeah, she posted about how I'm doing all my nerdy stuff, and then like posted a bunch of nerdy emojis, and then she never did another thing again. So
true.
good times.
Awkward.
Awkward.
Yeah, I mean, there was a Miss Marvel trailer released today.
I saw that. I should have watched it. I kept thinking about I should watch it, but
I don't know if you would have got much out of it, to be honest. Like, it's, I mean, the talking points I think from people are like they've changed her powers.
mm,
Um, and that can be for a number of reasons. And again, like until we actually watch the show, we don't know if her powers are actually changed. I mean, she puts on this bracelet, which is like this powerful bracelet that might be from the comic books that give her those extra powers.
mm,
And we do see like some of her comic book powers there, like her ability to make her arms bigger and stuff.
mm,
Um, but yeah, I think if they change it, it's because if they don't necessarily change it, people will just say, "Oh, she has the same powers as Mister Fantastic,"
mm,
which is a little true, but a little not true. And also, like in the comics, her entire story is related to the Inhumans, and well, not her story, but the way, at least the way she gets her powers.
mm,
And it seems like after the failure of the television show, uh, Disney and Marvel kind of want nothing to do with the Inhumans anymore.
mm.
And that was supposed to be a movie, and it got turned into a TV show, which I think was a big mistake.
Mm.
But
That's right. I kind of think I remember now. Like that was like the one with the giant dog, right? Or
yeah,
something like
Lockjaw.
that. Like,
Yep.
what the fuck happened to that? Now I don't think about it. I don't remember. You remember seeing a bunch of trailers and then it just disappeared.
Yeah, it
And it's
came
funny.
out.
Oh,
It ran for like 8 episodes or something, and it wasn't terrible, but like it definitely wasn't what anybody would have wanted from the Inhumans. It felt like a very. It took place like also like in Hawaii, so like to me it felt like one of those like Hawaii 5 or NCIS shows or something. Like it just felt really cheesy and not that good. Um, there were parts of it that were good, and some of the ideas and themes in it were good, but it's not like I don't know. When you have a like think about characters like Guardians of the Galaxy or the Eternals, right? Like these are characters that people don't really know much about to begin with. And so if you just kind of like throw them a random TV show about the characters in a weird, campy setting, most people won't care, right? Like, think about if you got a TV show of Guardians of the Galaxy that was like made for ABC television.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
it probably wouldn't have been nearly as good, right?
yeah.
Especially because you need like you need good people to work on those. Like, not that the people who like directed it and wrote it and stuff were bad, but it's like the people that work on Marvel television things. Like, it's not like James Gunn, right? Like, James Gunn made Guardians a success, right? And partially, Kevin Feige and people at Marvel have to have, something to do with that as well, but not as much as like, James Gunn. Like, it's his vision, right? And that's why Peacemaker I thought was so good. I don't know if you ever finished that, but
Watching parts of it, and I really enjoyed John Cena's really into that role, so I should probably go back and finish it. But I just haven't. I don't know. I just started going on this bender. I watched, like I said, all the DC, like almost all the DC animations, the Justice League Dark, all like the intro, like they redid the Justice League a couple times.
yeah.
They did a really one I really liked where like it was like a Justice League, but what was it? General Zod or whatever the fuck his name was. Like it was his DNA instead of like Superman's father DNA, so it kind of changed the nature of Superman. And then he was like rescued in the desert by like a by an immigrant family, and Batman's like a vampire. I thought that was really fun.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. That's the
Yeah,
one where it's like the Trinity something.
yeah, and they
Yeah,
actually like kill villains and stuff like that. So it's more like the Punisher or something like that, which I enjoyed that. I thought
yeah.
that was a
And Wonder
cool
Woman
take.
is like in all like weird gold armor with a big headdress.
Yeah,
Right?
the one that for me that took the cake was the animation because you know me, I'm a huge weeb. I love anime. And so seeing the
Oh,
the arc, I believe it was called Gotham Knight, which is just a series of short stories by animation directors from Japan. And
that's
some
not. Wait, did you watch Batman Ninja?
no, there was another one called Arkham Knight, which is like a series. It's kind of like the Star Wars Visions, where it's a series of short stories about Batman, but they're animated in a classic Japanese cartoon style,
Hmm.
and it was really good. They made Bruce Wayne a little bit too anime boy, but you know it's like he looks really cute.
Yeah,
He's a cute anime boy sometimes when he's just being Bruce Wayne. I'm like okay,
yeah. Atolia agrees that Inhumans was not very good, but
I didn't even see it, so that lets you know how the general populace reacted to it. Like I just
yeah, yeah. That's the problem, right? Like, if you don't establish properly like Inhumans, like in the MCU, and then you
mm,
try to do Kamala Khan as Miss Marvel, and people don't understand like Terrigenesis and stuff.
mm.
Like, obviously, you couldn't do that origin anyway because it was like a big event in comics where something called a Terrigen Wave was released, where like it literally released all the Terrigen mist across the Earth, and
Wasn't that
anybody with Inhuman DNA became an Inhuman.
wasn't that something that happened in like Defenders of Shield or something? Wasn't
Yeah,
that
they
like how
did
it
do that
basically how
story,
it
and,
ended?
yeah, they did
Yeah.
do that story in Agents of Shield. Um, and yeah, because it was like a big thing. Like, Inhumans were getting pretty popular, I think, overall, like around that time, like 2015, 2016. And so, or 2014 even, because that's when Kamala Khan's Miss Marvel came out. So
Mm.
yeah, like that's how she got her powers. Is the wave hit and she went into cocoon and came out with powers. But it seems like they're keeping most of her comic book story, where like she writes fan fiction about superheroes and like is kind of a huge nerd, like within like she's like a proxy for us, right? Like,
Yeah.
even in comics, like that's what she does. She loves nerd things. She loves superheroes and she writes fan fiction about them and all this other stuff. So it seems like they're keeping a lot of that, and hopefully they keep that. Like, I don't know if they're good. I hope they don't change her heritage. Like, it seems like it's still Pakistani, but who knows? Like, they might make it
Yeah.
another kind of Middle Eastern. You never know, right?
Yep.
Um, so we'll see, but I think it looks fine. Like, it comes out June 8th, so like we're gonna have a lot of content soon. I mean, Moon Knight comes out end of this month, so March 30th, and then Obi-Wan May 25th, and then Miss Marvel June 8th. So
the horizon.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting, I think. And then I did start watching Doom Patrol because like I've seen
Mm.
like Titans and stuff, but I never watched Doom Patrol.
Yeah, I
Uh,
love the first season of Doom Patrol. I thought it was so much fun.
yeah, aside from their first, like they had one episode in the first season of Titans, but then I never
Mm.
watched the series Doom Patrol. So I watched the first episode, and it's really good. It's really good.
Yeah, it's really entertaining. That's like the most thing. Like it's just you got that guy being the narrator, breaking the fourth wall, time and shit, and I
Yeah, but Brendan Fraser's character is really good too.
yep,
He's
yes
like,
he is.
yeah,
This is his first. That was his first return to acting, I believe, in a very long time. So you know, considering everything that happened to him, I'm glad to see that he's like getting back into a role that's popular and into a show that's actually genuinely good and cares about the content and making interesting content.
yeah. So I'll probably end up watching all that. I only watched the first episode because I thought it was really good, and I thought my
Mm.
wife would probably like it, so I didn't want to keep watching it without her.
Yeah,
Um,
good
but
husband.
yeah. Um, so everybody's like raving about Euphoria, this TV show Euphoria, right?
Are
Have you?
they?
Yeah,
Because
everything I've seen, it's like now like HBO Max is like top rated show of all time. It's like winning Grammys and all this stuff, and everybody's talking about how great it is and how much they love it. I watched 2 episodes of that show and I felt depressed the entire fucking time. There's nothing redeeming about it. There's nothing redeeming about any of the characters. Everybody's terrible. Everybody's self destructive. Nobody's happy. And there's no promise of anything getting better ever.
oh, some people like the pain like that. They don't want to watch shows that make them happy and feel good about themselves. They just want to watch shows that are reflections of the society they perceive around them.
Yeah, but it's worse than that.
Yeah,
Because it's like, I mean, I'm sure there are. I mean, I know there are really, really bad people in the world, and there's also people that just make really bad decisions every day and let things ruin their life and whatever. Like, I know all that exists, but like, you have one dude who like legit like stalks some other dude and then like beats him up and then steals
mm.
his clothes and is like sleeping in his apartment and just like it's so weird. Like, I'm just like, I was like talking to someone, they're like, yeah, he never gets better. Like, he just gets worse. I'm like,
Mm.
how do you have characters like this that just like are terrible, all of them?
Yeah, not good people. I don't know. That's the thing.
Also,
It's
there's something weird about people like that are clearly adults but are supposed to be in high school, like having sex and stuff. It's very odd to watch that.
yeah,
And like, you know, people might like younger people might want to watch the show just because like, if you're like 15, 16 and you're a boy and there's nudity, I mean, you're probably going to try to watch it, right? I
yeah,
mean, there's nothing sexy about that show in any way whatsoever. Nothing in the sex scenes is ever good. Like, it's always
mm,
like rapey or abusive or just disgusting, and all the dicks are prosthetic.
yeah. And this is what I come run down with too is like there's a lot of people specifically like on the more conservative right that talk about blah, 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 like the liberals want like this and they want us to like they want all our shows to represent this, but like the more and more I watch shows, more and more they like low key seem like just straight sexual assault appealing to male power fantasies. Like it's like
Yeah,
uh,
I mean, the thing about the show too is like most like almost all except for maybe one or two of your main characters are women, right?
yeah.
Like, and all of them are just continuously making the worst decision possible. Like, if you gave them a decision tree, like every step of the way, they always pick the worst one, always, right? And like the only dude at all who's redeeming in the show is like a drug dealer because he actually cares about the main character and doesn't want her doing drugs. Like, it's actually weird, and like I don't get the appeal. Maybe I'll finish watching it and then I'll understand. But it's just like, I don't know. Maybe that's why I don't. Maybe I just don't watch enough movies or TV shows because like pretty much all I watch is nerd stuff. Like, I don't know. I don't really like expand my horizons much,
Yeah.
but it's just odd to me.
Well, I would say that like the superhero content too. Like when I'm watching Justice League and stuff like that, they aside from some of the newer Batman like stuff that I watched that had more inclusive female body types, but man, when I'm watching like Justice League Unlimited and other stuff like that, it's like there's only one female body type, and that's like thin waisted, wide hips, big bust, and that's it. Perfect face, asymmetrical, perfect face, and that's pretty much it. Sums up all of them. The outfits are kind of trashy in my opinion, but I don't
Well,
know. Maybe I'm walking off the deep end here, but it just seems like a lot of shows have been overhyping sexuality because they're getting to the bottom of the pit of what they feel like their writing ability, so they just go into sex because they don't know what else to do.
well, I think that's also just how like comic books have always been drawn, right? And like if you
Yeah.
look at
Now, but the question is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because I tend to lean
um,
more towards the bad side.
I think it's a
Like,
representation of society, right? Like
yeah,
if you look at like when comic books start, I mean, comic books have been around for like hundreds of years, right? Like,
yeah,
I mean, even going back to
Hier-
like cave paintings and shit, right? Like,
hieroglyphics, yeah,
yeah. But if you look at like how society has formed, all over the world, like it's not just an American thing. Like it's a worldwide thing. Like we've always kind of pandered to how like what men want to see, right? Because men have always been in power, right?
yeah,
And have always, I mean, felt that power was theirs because physically it could be, right? Like
yeah.
if they like that's one of the things is like it's really hard to have like conversations about like gender and things because people are like, well, like women can be stronger than men and stuff, and it's like, well, some can, yeah, but biologically, men will always have denser bones and more
Well, dude,
muscle capacity and
the early
whatever.
2000, the first 4,000 years of human history had to do solely with martial prowess. That's how you determined who was in charge.
Right,
Until of course the generation afterwards completely fell apart.
right. And so, I mean, even though we're civilized partially, like we've always still kind of like pandered to that, right?
Yeah.
And you know, cause and effect is hard to determine here. Like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? What like are women drawn that way in comic books because mostly men read them, or do mostly men read them because women are drawn that way in comic books? Right? Like, we don't actually
Mm.
know necessarily. Like, I mean, I haven't read any studies about that to determine causality, but um, yeah, I mean, I think that's just like how it's always been. So people leave it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Comic books have changed, obviously. Like it's not all that anymore. Um, but it still is, right? Like you're still gonna read a bunch of indie comics if you read comics like that. That's how it is. It just
Yeah.
that's just how it is. I mean, look at like you have your pinnacle characters. You have Wonder Woman, right? Who, yes, like she's a badass. She's very strong. She's like this incredible feminine heroine, but at the same time, like, yeah, she's scantily clad and looks amazing. Like, and it's like that. Even though like little girls who are reading that aren't thinking, "Wow, look how beautiful she is." Like, I'll never be that beautiful, so I can't be strong and whatever. Like, I don't think kids who are reading it are thinking that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when you're grown up and you understand certain concepts, you're like, wow, like that's cool. But like again, this is why there is this movement, right? There is such a movement about wanting equal representation and stuff, is because as you get older, you realize, well, Wonder Woman's great, but she only represents some women, right? Even
Yeah.
though like she could represent all women, like not everybody will relate to her.
And representation, but also like just less. I don't know, sexual fantasies portrayed through popular media is something I think is probably what I apologize. I'm pretty scatterbrained today. It's been a rough couple of
It's all
days,
good.
but yeah, I just think like God, like I'm just the more and more stuff I read, the more and more it seems like whoever's creating the content just kind of wanted to, or they were just really horny and they wanted to write a story about, it, stuff like that. It's
Yeah, I
because
think
someone has to draw, people design and draw these characters. that's
right.
that's kind of like the thing, and it's very strange when you see like an animation studio that's just all men.
Right. Well, if you look at hugely popular, right, female characters that like run their own comic book series, you're looking at like Red Sonja,
Mm,
you're looking at Lady Death, and like both of these characters barely wear any clothes.
Yeah.
have huge bazonkadonks. You know what I mean? And
Very thick.
obviously that's by design. And let me tell you, I don't know many women who are reading those, right?
Mm.
So it very clearly is there to appeal to men, right? I mean, even if you look at movies, right, in popular media, I mean, you look at Star Wars, Princess Leia was pretty well clad until she wasn't.
Yeah.
And what's her most popular look? The one
It's
where she's not very, doesn't have
fuck,
very much clothes on.
where she's literally a slave.
Right, and some women do find that empowering, right? Like,
Yeah.
like if you go to conventions and you see Princess Leia's, a lot of them are dressed like that. Especially the old ladies who shouldn't be dressed like that.
Yeah. Well, that's when they do it to piss you off.
Right, but at the same time, it's like you have to realize in the context of Star Wars, I mean, it's an incredibly disgusting, greedy piece of shit who makes her wear that and purposely tries to take away her power, right? So like that's the whole point, right? Like people can just say, "Oh, well, he's George Lucas just did that cuz everybody wants to see Princess Leia dressed like that." But I think in the context of Star Wars, it's partially that and partially
Well, in the story, and also in the story, he was kidnapped by a notorious gangster that was more than willing to feed his own slaves to a rancor, and obviously had the other dancers scantily clad.
right.
Yeah. Whether or not George Lucas, a little bit nerdy, so I'm sure he has some hot takes about women, but we'll never know.
Well, I've actually never heard George Lucas say anything necessarily derogatory about women. I mean, I think well, did he? I actually don't know anything about his marriage.
I know he's not a fan of Mara Jade either, and that could be a good thing because I know Mara Jade, and specifically in the Star Wars stories and comics, seems like kind of like another sex object.
Well, I mean, you look at a lot of like popular creators, and like you can find deep in their history like misogynism and other terrible things. I mean, look at David Goyer, right? David Goyer is a guy who, if you watch any early 2000s DC or Marvel project, any of them, his name is attached, right? This is a guy who like went to comic book conventions and just talked shit to fans and made fun of like She-Hulk and stuff because she's She-Hulk. Like he's just a disgusting person. Like, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them like that. So
yeah. Well, too, and I think also another thing about it, George Lucas specifically didn't want to go to LA when he wanted to start making movies, and there's a lot of good reasons for that. I still to this day don't know why LA is like still there and still considered a good place for young actresses to go to feel like they're gonna make it big. Because man, it's like a shithole of abuse. It really is, and it's crazy to me that it continues to go on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, David Goyer's name is also attached to like the Dark Knight and stuff like that. Like, I'm not saying he's bad at what he does. I'm just saying like if you go back to some of his comments, like this guy straight up said, She-Hulk is a virgin sex fantasy, like to a fan who asked him a question, like it's just weird shit this guy says. But yeah, this is also the I know it was like this week is like the anniversary, the 10-year anniversary of George Lucas's New York Times interview where he says I'm not making more Star Wars and I'm selling to Disney because every time I make one, people tell me what a piece of shit I am.
Yeah, well, he's not wrong. Star Wars fans are the fucking worst. We're the worst.
Yep, and guess they're all begging for him to come back, aren't they? Jesus, man.
I don't know if they're begging for him to come back. I just think
after the last trilogy, like all I saw everywhere was people saying they should have made George Lucas's vision. George Lucas should have been put in charge again. Why are they? They are destroying Star Wars and insulting George Lucas's legacy. Like, it's like, come on, guys.
Star Wars fans are the worst.
Yeah. What else? Apparently there's some news about Darth Maul was initially going to be in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series in like an early draft, and then he was cut from it, and then Pablo Hidalgo, who's worked on a bunch of stuff with Lucasfilm, said that never was true, and people are arguing. Who cares? I don't want Darth Maul and Obi-Wan Kenobi. We saw that in Rebels already. So
Yeah. We also saw him in I don't know. He was in Solo for like 5 seconds. And
yeah, I mean, I'd rather see like that kind of story with him, like carrying. Well, actually, can you carry that on? How do you do that? Because he gets killed by Obi-Wan.
yeah, but we also know that it's a much older Obi-Wan, right? Like it's pretty close. It's pretty far in the future from where I think this current version of Obi-Wan takes place.
Right. So, but in Rebels, he doesn't know where he is, right? So it wouldn't make
Yeah.
sense to see him. Sean Levy will direct Deadpool 3. That was announced. So he directed Free Guy, which was a Ryan Reynolds movie, and then The Adam Project, which is another Ryan Reynolds movie that like just came out 2 days ago or something. So now he's going to be doing Deadpool 3, and there's no other news around that, I think.
I really enjoyed the first and second Deadpools, so hopefully this one will just be another entertaining kind of pseudo action comedy movie.
Yeah, this Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick are the two people who wrote both the first two Deadpool movies, and they're coming back to write the third one.
Good.
We don't
It's
know.
good to have consistency.
We don't know if Cable or Domino are going to be in it. We don't know anything else. Sean Levy is also an executive producer on Netflix's Stranger Things and has directed many of its episodes. He usually directs family-friendly movies like Cheaper by the Dozen and Night at the Museum. So it's an interesting choice. Okay. There's no release date yet, but yeah, that's all we got. He's directed, yo. Oh, and then last week we talked about the Batman.
Yep.
And I brought up a couple of times the composer, Michael Giacchino.
Mm-hmm.
Well, apparently he's going to be a director now, and he's directing Marvel's Werewolf by Night special.
What? Werewolf by what?
Werewolf by Night. Never heard of it?
No.
That's where excuse me. That's where Moon Knight first made his first appearance. Let me see if they give more information about it. Giacchino does have one previous live-action genre credit as a director. He previously helmed the short film Monster Challenge. Don't know what that is. He's best known for composing music for The Incredibles, Star Trek, Rogue One, Lost, Jurassic World, War for the Planet of the Apes, etc. He's done a bunch of shit. And the Batman and Spider-Man trilogy. Okay, here we go. I'll read to you what they say. Given that Moon Knight made his first appearance in an issue of Werewolf by Night, I just said that, there could be a connection between Marvel's next Disney Plus show and the Halloween special. Okay, who knows? All right, I don't actually care about any of that, but yeah. There was also there was some news about Moon Knight not taking place in the MCU. What is that? What does that mean to you? Does that matter?
So it's confirmed 100% by Disney.
Yeah, sounded well. So
my first knee-jerk reaction is that they watched it. It's completed now, and it's kind of fucked up, and they don't want it to be part of the MCU because of how fucked up it is. But I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see.
I think Oscar Isaac was talking about it.
Like they said, the first two Spider-Mans weren't part of the MCU, but then they bring them in for Far From Home, whatever the newest Spider-Man was. So just have to wait and see.
Yeah. Okay. So, Moon Knight will mark the MCU's first venture into the supernatural, Egyptian gods, and mystical creatures. Blah blah blah. In an ever-connected cinematic universe like the MCU, fans are always waiting to find out how each project will tie into what comes next and what has come before. By the sounds of it, Moon Knight will be much more of a standalone venture. Via a new Disney press release, Moon Knight executive producer Grant Curtis revealed the series will not be attached to the current MCU. That's a big word, current.
Yeah.
Curtis first described the great excitement inside Marvel Studios to introduce Moon Knight and take the MCU to its Iron Man and Tony Stark's roots in building a new hero from the ground up once again. There are multiple aspects of Moon Knight that get us internally jazzed at Marvel Studios, but one of the unique aspects of this character is it's taking Marvel Studios to its Iron Man and Tony Stark roots. That was a character that was obviously built from the ground up, and it is the same with Mark Spector. We're absolutely embracing the supernatural aspects of what was in publishing, the Egyptian gods, this ruthless Egyptian god Khonshu that manipulates Mark to do his bidding. We're embracing all of that. We love that stuff. We love stuff that goes bump in the night. There's no attachment to the current MCU. He's brand new and is going on a brand new adventure. We really think fans are going to enjoy it. Okay, well, after Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, anything is possible, so I doubt it will stand alone for very long. That is my entire feedback and opinion and thought.
I just want to watch it. If it's going to be good, I'll give it a thumbs up and talk about what was good. And if it's bad, just spend all our time shitting on it. Like, honestly, at the end of the day, like, I'm still not watching many trailers anymore because I'm just trying not to hype myself up too much for projects that may or may not let me down.
Yeah. Well, it seems like a lot of what Disney's doing is like they're taking like runs that were popular in 2014 and making those now. Like, I think because I think that's when like the MCU was really like thriving. It was like, 2012 was the first Avengers, 2015 was the second, right? Like, Marvel was doing very well at that point. And so for me, it's like what I was reading around 2014 was the new Miss Marvel series with Kamala Khan and the new run on Moon Knight. Who was writing it at the time? It wasn't Mark Waid, was it? Moon Knight, Volume 1, 2014. It was... yeah, Ellis. Good writer. Escape. I'm locked in a loop. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, Warren Ellis, very good. He's a very good writer. But yeah, so that run. If you guys haven't read it, you can look it up. I mean, if you have the Marvel Comics app, you can buy it in there, I'm sure. Check out Moon Knight Volume 1 from 2014. The first volume is called From the Dead. So yeah, very good thing. Very good. And same with Miss Marvel, 2014.
I hope it's good, and I love Oscar Isaac. I thought he was really good as Poe. Not Poe. It was Poe, right?
Well, he was Poe.
Leto. Yeah, he's Poe in Star Wars. I thought he was really good as Leto, which is difficult to do because like you're reading Dune right now. You know that dude's only in the book for like the first 100 pages before he just gets offed. Spoilers, by the way, if you haven't read Dune or seen it. So, he's able to contribute to the character. I thought he was really, really good in Star Wars, but, like I said, Star Wars, I thought all the actors in Star Wars would have been great if there was the proper support behind them and the proper, writing went into those. I thought there would have been a great new cast, but unfortunately we got what we got. So,
yeah, if Disney had a plan, it would have been fine.
Yeah. I hope and he was an X-Men, right? He was the villain. He was the villain in X-Men.
He was Apocalypse, but that was not a good X-Men movie.
What? They were killing people left and right, man. People were getting turned into bone soup.
It wasn't like
Phoenix one shots.
I tried to watch Dark Phoenix. Holy fuck, was that bad? Oh my god! I knew Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique died, and I couldn't wait to see that. I was so excited to see that because I hated her character. I really wanted to watch her die, and even that, all the joy was sucked out of it because of how bad it was. You got me into Moon Knight, so I'm interested in the show. Yeah, it's a great. I mean, I love Moon Knight. Like, Moon Knight's a great character. So.
And it looks interesting, at least, because I did watch the very first trailer, so I'm just hoping it doesn't suck. That's all I can really hope for these days. It's kind of a low bar standard, but, Who am I gonna
Yeah. Did you watch the Doctor Strange trailer?
The Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I watched the very first teaser trailer. Um, I went to the comments and saw everyone talking about what could or couldn't be in the movie, and I was like, hey,
Yeah. It's just. I mean, do you think that Professor X is gonna be in there, and Doctor Doom, and all these people that everybody says is gonna be in there?
I don't know what's possible. Like you were leading up to the newer Spider-Man, saying there's no way Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield could have been in there, and then there they were, and they were in it for like a good chunk of the movie.
Well,
And
that's
then
the thing is like
William Dafoe was back, and like all this stuff.
I never
So,
doubted they would bring in any characters. I just don't like the leaks or the rumors. Like, I think
yeah,
it's really obnoxious to be like, rumor. Oh, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in it. Guys, let's do all this investigative research and web fucking biology and shit. Like, look at
yeah.
this picture was clearly not photoshopped and all that. Like, I was like, dude, just wait for the movie and enjoy it. Like, because if I believe all your leaks and all your rumors and then I go watch the movie and they're not in it, then that might taint my view of the movie that maybe is good, but now I think it's bad because I was expecting something that didn't happen.
That's why I stay away from a lot of trailers and stuff like that. But as to your question, the Multiverse of Madness, anything's possible. To be
Well, yeah.
honest, like I think Sir Patrick Stewart. I have to be 100% honest with you. The first couple of X-Men movies, like I know a lot of people really like them, but man, I always thought they were kind of campy and cheesy and dumb. To be 100% honest with you, and I think Sir Patrick Stewart was probably one of the only, and Ian McKellen playing Magneto, were the only two really redeeming qualities to be found there. Because those two are really good actors.
I thought that the entire cast was good aside from Anna Paquin as Rogue.
Hmm. Well, we're all allowed to have our opinions. And to like in in X-Men First Class, like I didn't even bother watching it, to be 100% honest with you. To me, it looked really stupid and cheesy and bad.
It
No,
was bad.
yeah, I think and then I went and saw that one with you, and I thought it was kind of okay because there were a lot of really weird, funny scenes, and they went like a more grotesque way with it. But
Yeah, the problem with X-Men movies is they are stuck in like that early 2000s mold of making superhero movies, like all of them. Like they can all be so good, but they're all like I'm not going to say they're all so bad because I think the X-Men like the first X-Men and X2 were decent movies, but like they're never going to be as good as they could be. And that's a problem to me because like you look at what like Disney and Kevin Feige have managed to do with like these certain MCU projects, like I said with Guardians of the Galaxy, that could easily be something that nobody cares about and is terrible, but they made it good, right? And like I feel like X-Men in the right hands can be that good, but it's never been in the right hands. Like there's so many things like in First Class like that made me excited for it because they were in the trailer, like stuff with like the Cuban Missile Crisis tie-in and like JFK and like the story behind Professor X and Magneto, like, and they had a good cast as well, and like everything seemed like it could have been so good, and then the movie was just not good and mostly boring, right? Like it's just kind of obnoxious, like, and then they did Days of Futures Past, and that again could have just been so good and mostly wasn't.
Yeah.
Right.
And then they did all those Wolverine spinoffs too, and the only good Wolverine spinoff to me, honestly, was Logan. That was it. Like I don't know which one they fucking
and
sent
that's
him into
because
the
there was
past.
no plan to do anything after that, so there was nothing to lose. So they just gave James Mangold free will to do whatever he wanted, and he made a good movie.
Yeah, he made an amazing movie about the succession of Legacy. Like at least that's what it was to me. And like I cried in that movie. That's how you know it was good. When it get, when X-29 turned the cross over to an X, I was like, oh fuck, like I really started bawling.
Yeah.
That was some good shit.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know. Like Apocalypse wasn't awful, but it still wasn't good. Like you still have a lot of those campy things and slow moments and like weird like trying to build that like just doesn't work. It slows everything down. Like the pacing's all wrong. Everything like just seems off,
Well, and too, like at the very end of the movie, they just say, "Oh, never mind. Phoenix is gonna fucking fix everything," and she just one shots of Ellen, and she fixes everything like with a snap of her fucking fingers. I'm like, oh god.
Right, and then like it
Yeah.
seems like they're trying to set up for Essex Corp and Mister Sinister, and nothing ever comes of that. Like John Hamm was legit supposed to be Mister Sinister, and just like he was cast and everything, and they just were like, man, never mind. Like it's just like, come on, guys, like the. And again, we've seen one live action Gambit, and it was in the worst movie. We still haven't got another live action game. I mean, I get it. Channing Tatum was supposed to be Gambit in his own movie in 2016, and then that movie got pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and now Channing Tatum permanently has a bad taste in his mouth around superhero movies because of how terribly Fox ran itself.
Too, and also he was in another movie called another movie a lot of people forget about called Jupiter Ascending, and I think too like that just turned him off to the idea of like these big budget fantasy sci-fi. Like at the end of the day, superhero movies fall into the sci-fi fantasy genre because they use science. Sometimes they use science, and other times they use fantasy to justify why the heroes can do the things that they do.
Right.
And now he's making a lot. Well, to be honest, too, like he just did a movie with it. We just went around the country with a German Shepherd, and like it made me cry a lot. So it was.
Did
really
you watch
good.
that movie?
It was very good. I enjoyed it because I have kind of a soft spot for that because I know what it's like to have a German Shepherd who's angry and upset all the time because of things that probably happened in her past.
Yeah.
So they got my heartstrings and they played me like a fucking fiddle. That's what.
Any movie that has a dog in it, I'm never gonna watch.
Yeah.
Because like I know the dog is either gonna die or or something is gonna happen and it's gonna be depressing, and I'm not ready for that. So
and he was also in another movie called Logan Lucky, which is probably one of the best movies I've watched in like the last 5 years. I would recommend you go watch that if you get the chance. It has Adam Driver in it as well. It's a hillbilly heist movie, and it's really really funny and it's very entertaining.
So it's like GTA roleplay.
But
in a movie.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I would say it's just kind of funny how they get away with it because of an actual funny thing about insurance. But I would just watch Logan Lucky if you ever get the chance. It is a really entertaining movie. It has Channing Tatum, Adam Driver, and Daniel Craig, who plays bleaches his hair and plays like this deep south, like just weird deep south dude. It's really funny.
Daniel Craig does.
Yeah, that guy who.
So does he play the same character in Knives Out as he plays in Logan Lucky?
No, completely opposite.
But in Knives Out, he's also like very South hillbilly-ish.
Yeah, but his hair isn't bleached in Knives Out, so it's just he's not running around in tie-dye shirts and doing some.
Have you watched Knives Out?
I didn't, but I heard actually some people said it was pretty decent.
I had no interest in watching it, but one day my wife was watching it, and I just like was stuck in the room.
Yeah,
and actually it was pretty good.
Yeah,
Logan Lucky was good. Okay, yeah, everybody's saying this now.
That's right. You should go. You should watch it, bro. It's telling you.
Should I?
Yeah, it's like a hillbilly heist movie. That's all I got to say. They literally rob a racetrack. So it's just
They rob a racetrack?
Yeah.
What value is there at a racetrack?
So when you have race day and then all those people are buying like food, and like merchandise and stuff like that.
Wow.
And I guess,
but not the bets.
But there is a real thing that happens in a lot of large sports venues when they have an excess of cash. They actually load up the cash into these tubes and they send them essentially to a vault, and then the cash is redistributed to
like how you used to go to the ATM drive-through. Like the little thing, like the little canister will go through the tube, and then you put the check or whatever in there, and they go, and then it comes back.
And... That is still a thing that happens at sports, like large sports venues and like just large entertainment venues all the time, and that's what it's about. Like getting into that vault. It's just it's so entertaining. Channing Tatum and Adam Driver, they have such great chemistry.
One of my favorite things with Adam Driver is still the SNL skit where he's Kylo Ren. But like undercover boss.
He's Kyle.
Yeah.
Guys, sometimes I feel like Kylo Ren is really starting to restore order to the galaxy. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
He's Matt the radar technician.
He's Matt the radar technician.
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm a radar technician.
He just kills he starts killing a bunch of people. They're like, oh hey, Kylo Ren's lightsaber is kind of stupid. Oh, hey, I just found Kylo Ren's lightsaber. Why don't you look and see how not stupid it is? And then he like kills someone. Oh, that is really funny.
Did you guys know Kylo Ren has an 8-pack? I just saw him in the bathroom. He's shredded. This is probably the last funny SNL bit because SNL's not been funny for a long time.
There are sometimes they have kernels. Okay. Yeah, no, that sometimes the snow hits it, sometimes they don't. I feel like with Trump being in office, I feel like it just killed all late night comedy in the United States because it was just I don't know, dude. It was like it was a buffet, and just to finish my thought real quick. It was a buffet, and they gorged themselves, and it was fucking embarrassing to watch. Like that's all I could say.
Every punchline was Trump's an idiot, and it's like, all right, guys, good one.
Yeah, like it was funny with the first 100 times, but afterwards it was just like boring. And now watching it now, it's kind of sad because like they're literally still trying to talk about him like 2 years later, and it's like get new material, and like they're sorting through all the cards trying to find. But it's just all Trump jokes, which is why I like Jon Stewart's new show is really really good on Apple Podcasts.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Jon Stewart was always good, because let's be honest, Trevor Noah ruined the Daily Show.
Yeah, in specific ways he did. In other ways, I feel like he contributed a different kind of perspective to it. But I do feel like a lot of Trevor Noah's monologues just aren't as potent as Jon Stewart's monologues are. And also, what happened to Stephen Colbert? Like, I don't know what happened to that guy. He used to have the funniest political commentary because it was like just a joke.
Well, I mean, he went mainstream, right? Like, he signed a big deal, and now he's like
milquetoast. Now he's telling people like, just go buy a Tesla, you fucking poor. Stop being poor and go buy a Tesla. That's basically like. I mean,
yeah. Even like his political stuff though is like not good anymore. Like.
Yeah, and it used to be fantastic because he was just parroting fucking crazy right wing people in this country, which there are plenty of them. Like a lot of his show, The Colbert Report, was basically just a joke running gag on the Rush Limbaugh show, and it was hilarious because he parodied it so well. And now he's just really boring milquetoast. He doesn't make any edgy jokes anymore, and he complains about how poor people have to use gas in their cars because they can't afford new electric vehicles, and they should stop being poor.
And the funniest thing is when all our gas started spiking, like Elon Musk came out and said like legitimately like we need to invest more in oil in our country because like he said even though it's gonna hurt my business, like that's the only solution right now.
Yeah, well,
like we just don't have the infrastructure for.
We need to invest and then get off it. It's the thing. Like I'm just so tired of being controlled by the gas pump, and I hope a lot of other people really are
well,
too.
It's never gonna change because then you're gonna be at the mercy of the electric pump. Like, you know what I mean? Like electricity costs are gonna soar too, and electricity, people can argue all they want about how it's cleaner. I mean, you're still burning coal to create electricity.
That's why I'm saying too we could transition onto nuclear, but the problem is
that
you can't.
This is the biggest mistake America ever did was getting away from nuclear, and
yes.
but citizens don't like it. That's the thing. Like
they don't like it. They don't like
it again.
They don't like it in their backyards. But I also believe we're to a point into a society where we could just build super nuclear power plants, like massive spanning facilities in the middle of nowhere.
But we used to.
There's minimal natural disasters, and we can just ship the water from the coastline.
Look at what happened with Texas, like last year or the year before, or whatever. Like when all their wind turbines froze, and, and all their electric grid was like.
But also, it wasn't just the wind turbines; their gas and natural pipelines also froze in their place because they didn't anticipate. Because climate change is happening; it's happening all over this country. Places where it's getting colder and colder, and it's getting hotter and hotter in other places.
It's because unlike most places, Texas. Has an isolated grid, so like they can't pull power from anywhere else, like everywhere else can. So
and also they're at the mercy of an unregulated free market, where it's like, hey, maybe it's a good idea to have a power grid that's kind of and I know it's more expensive and it sucks, but we need a power grid that's also like kind of tough and able to resist inclement weather. And instead,
but if they had nuclear, it wouldn't have been an issue.
Yeah, I know.
Mean, and you look at where there's currently nuclear power. I mean, the most prominent one is Germany right now, right? Like,
France. France is almost entirely nuclear. I think they have like 35 power stations or something like that, and they're almost the entire country. But also another huge issue in this country is that there is a lot of lobbying that goes on against nuclear, because if you start building nuclear power plants and people's their energy costs start going down because
Well,
the process of generating nuclear energy gets cheaper and cheaper, and with the next generation of thorium, I keep forgetting the name, thorium, something like that, something thorium reactors, where they essentially take nuclear waste from other nuclear power plants and generate power from that, which essentially gets rid of the problem with nuclear waste entirely.
that's
You
because
know,
lobbyists and
it's
business
going to put a lot
people
of people out of
are
business.
dumb.
Yeah.
Because all they see is them losing money. But
Yes.
they don't see, I mean, this is something that in economics and in capitalism has always been known as beautiful destruction, right?
Mm.
Look at when Henry Ford made the first car,
He didn't
right?
want to change it. Yeah.
And everybody said, no, 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 because you're going to put horse and buggies out of business.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And guess what? We destroyed thousands of jobs in this country, but we created tens of thousands as a result, right?
Yeah.
And then look at the creation of the car created roads. Well, I mean, we've had roads, but I mean, proper infrastructure, bridges.
Well, that didn't happen until around the 1950s, when we underwent a massive infrastructure project in this country, which I don't understand why we can't just do that
that's
now.
the point, right? Like all these things came about, and at the cost of horse and buggies. You know what I mean? Right? Like, it's time to adjust as things adjust. And if there are better, more fuel efficient ways to do things, and there's better fuel opportunities, such as nuclear, such as, we're never going to exist on solar, wind, and hydro, solely, right?
But they can help.
Right.
That's the thing. Like they help contribute to where, like, places where nuclear just isn't feasible. Like, there are places where you can't build nuclear power plants, like up in the hills and the mountains, when there's constantly shifting territory, and you don't want a forest fire overrunning a nuclear facility. You just don't.
But if oil companies, at least in the United States, because I don't know why we care about oil companies in places like Iran, it just boggles my mind that talks about Iran right now, and Iran being a middle partner, between negotiations with Russia and stuff.
And it all boils down to the fact that our country is just kind of a circus right now. It really is a circus for a bunch of rich people. I wish it wasn't that way, but it really is. The fact that our politicians' balls are in a vice because they have someone who's saying, "Hey, we're gonna primary the shit out. We're gonna dump a gajillion dollars into your opponent's campaign next election cycle, unless you play ball with us." And I think that's a really shitty way of governance. I really don't like that.
Government shouldn't be pay to win, but
yeah, exactly. But
if these oil companies and coal we're never going to be independent of electricity. Let's be honest. We're just never going to be independent of coal-powered electricity.
Or of power in general. We're always going to need some form of power to do things.
Right. But if oil companies were smart, they would start investing more in nuclear. The problem is, people still have to vote on that, right?
Yeah.
And people are very against it because of things like Chernobyl, which is a 1 in a million chance.
It also happened in a very old facility being ran by a bunch of people who were 18 and 19 years old, because the Soviet Union was in a state of collapse because they had been burning through their young population through forced conscription, like what they're doing right now in Ukraine. And pressing more people into service in industries is not ready for. That's another thing too. Is I think nuclear would be good for this country because it would create a lot of new high-paying jobs.
And comparatively, nuclear kills less people a year than oil.
Yeah. If you, the only if you, and the thing is, for me too, the fucked up thing is like this. At the end of the day, if you if you run a line from a tailpipe into a little enclosed area, it'll kill whatever living thing, plant, microorganism, whatever that is contained in that area, because it'll be snuffed out from the particulates in the air. And at the end of the day, this carbon doesn't float. Gravity is still a thing. It hangs in the lower atmosphere, and we do nothing but pump it up all day and all day and all day and all day. It just doesn't disperse magically into space where it goes away. Carbon is an atom, and it's grabbed onto, and it's affected by the Earth's gravity. It hangs in there in the atmosphere. So we need carbon capture. We need all these sorts of things. Like it eventually seeks down forest. They love carbon. Tree bark is made out of carbon. That's what it is. It's just solidified carbon. And
Yeah, but there's different kinds of carbon.
yes,
I
and
mean, carbon dioxide, not bad. Carbon
yeah,
monoxide, very bad.
it's very bad. And we pump it all day.
Did you
Back of our
know
cars.
that I learned this like a couple weeks ago? There are
Mm,
people who work for the government, right? At least I met someone who works for the California state government
mm,
whose literal job is to go to different like farm companies and like state run plants and
mm,
remove the carbon monoxide from cow shit.
mm.
That's their job.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah. No, don't even get me started on like big agriculture in this country, because at the end of the day, it's just super unhealthy. Like when you look at these cows and these chickens and these massive factory farms, like it's hard to look at. In the end of the day, that comes at the success of cheap meat. But also, man, I don't know if we have to sacrifice like cheap.
Well,
Hopefully,
California now has a law about at least pigs.
mm,
We can't buy any pork or bacon or anything from anywhere, any other
mm,
state, and bring into California from any farm that does not like have certain standards. Like you have to have like adequate space for each pig and all this stuff. So that's why, if you haven't noticed, bacon is skyrocketing here in California. It's not just inflation; it's because of this new law in California. So I mean, you can do all this stuff, but it's at the expense of the consumers.
yeah, and also, but
And it puts family farms out of businesses a lot of places.
and consumers in the United States have gotten used to a high standard of living that isn't found anywhere else, and I think that's come at a great expense that we're beginning to see manifest itself. You know, you walk into Target every day, you see all these materials on the shelves, and I don't think a lot of people walking in there never really ask themselves where it come from or if this has continued to be sustainable over time, specifically when there are things that are non-renewable that they put in Target.
Well, it's the same. It's the same thing with almost every policy to try to make things better. Like
Mm,
at least that's the idea. Is like hey, California, we're going to pass this law that makes makes farming better for pigs, right?
mm,
Um, but it doesn't hurt the big factory farmers. It doesn't hurt the the major agricultural drivers in our country. It hurts the
mm,
family farms. It
yeah.
hurts the little guys. Like, and a lot of those places go out of business and lose everything because. I mean, even though they still hold their farm to high standards and give their animals adequate space, it doesn't meet certain guidelines that now are imposed by California.
Yeah.
And we buy a lot of pork from Nebraska, right? And they're not going to change everything just to sell to California, but we're one of the highest purchasers in all the countries. So then they have to change everything just to sell to California. Like it's going
And
to like
this just centers back to a problem, like an inherent problem with the system. Like, like you said, if we bring back manufacturing jobs to this country, because not everybody can do these crazy advanced, hyper advanced, like, 4-year education jobs that are required now. Not everybody's intellectually capable of doing those things. It's just a fact we have to accept. And that's why I think we're getting a number of dispossessed men who have nothing to do, no idea what to do with their lives. Uh, and then immediately everything becomes way too expensive and the average consumer is priced out. And then everyone goes, well, that's just the free market. And that makes me think, man, like, I don't know. I feel like we need to move on to different style of economics for a future where humans should be able to have these things without immediately being, I don't know. It's just to me like you want healthy, wholesome meat. Like for me personally, like eventually one day my aspirations are to own land where I can do all these things myself because I'm a crazy asshole. Like I like being hyper independent, but also I don't think everybody else should be priced out of being able to eat healthy, wholesome food just because they want healthy, wholesome food. Greta Thunberg, she says a lot of really dumb, stupid things, and she gets really angry at people she gets angry at the wrong people. But she also says some things that are super based and super woke as fuck when she says basically that it's impossible for an average person to live a sustainable lifestyle. It's almost impossible because they in some way they have to pay way too much than what they're making. It's yeah.
well
And that's a
I feel
problem with
bad
the
for
system.
Greta Thunberg. I feel
Um,
like a lot of big people with other interests are taking advantage of her,
yeah,
and
I think that's the
I think
case
that's an
too.
issue. But
But also when she highlights the fact that she's right. It's impossible for people if you want to live a sustainable, eco-friendly lifestyle. You're immediately, if you're not making 200 grand a year, you can't do that.
what if you don't want to? Should you be forced to?
Well, that's the thing is like, what products do we offer that are horrible for the environment? For me, like I think the most egregious thing is private jet fare. I Jets pump out a lot, and I mean a lot of that evil stuff that you don't like. Jet fuel is basically like one sip up from slag. It really is. It's in they. One guy says, "Oh, I want to go to New York," so he gets in his own little private jet and he flies to New York and he pumps out like 400 times the normal amount that a regular person would be pumping out at any given point in the lifestyle. Like to me, that's. But also at the same time, I know that's a bit maybe it leans a little bit too authoritarian, but I just there are
Yeah.
signs. There are signs that I think pollution is starting to have a direct impact on people's mental well-being. That's just really what it is. Because environmentalism, at the end of the day, when it boils down to it, is tackling independent sources of pollution, and you need to go after the biggest polluters, which in this case usually is meat farming, because it's just dumping they dump tons and tons of pills like into the animals feed troughs, and they have to get the pills bigger every year because the diseases are just upgrading themselves to deal with the antibiotics they're feeding them because they're in these shit sties you know locked in, like the shit's just sprawling all over the ground. Some teenager comes and shoots it with a fire hose every day to hopes it makes the things cleaner and sanitized when it doesn't work, and then you're getting this rotten disgusting meat that's infected with salmonella. How many recalls of massive foster farms of the bigger butcher, the bigger meat producers have we seen in the last 5 years? It's
Well, but that's because that's more because of our own federal government standards not being up to par, right? Like you
the
can,
problem is if the federal government brings those standards up to par, the meat becomes 20. Like you said, small farm and pop farms are immediately put out of business because they can't afford these new standards.
well,
And
I think the thing is like Foster Farms is not is obviously one of the biggest chicken companies in the country, right? Like,
yeah,
and I actually used to work with someone.
mm,
You worked with him too, Ray.
mm,
He was a meat inspector, chicken for
mm,
Foster Farms, particularly for the federal government, and like the way he explained it was like that there aren't that like there's a certain amount of things they allow to be in your food anyway,
yeah,
and like obviously they're not inspecting every piece of chicken, like they're inspecting like one every like couple batches,
yeah.
so the
And
problem is
also,
like if one has it and then you package it with a bunch of other ones, they're all gonna have it, right? So
yeah. And also, too, this boils down to another huge issue in this country, which I think is at the core of everything, is that this country, the United States of America, just has a huge issue with modernization. There are things you can do now that are wholly automated. Like, you can I'm sure you can develop a program that has a robot check the integrity of a piece of meat before it goes out to market. You can have a computer, you have a robot on Mars reading rock samples and sending the exact sedimentary, compounds back to Earth. And you're telling me we can't make a freaking robot that can scan meat and tell you whether or not it's fit for human consumption and do that en masse?
well,
It's
I'm sure they are doing that though. I'm sure they have something automated where like they take a sample and then it reads whatever's in it and they trace the levels like, but they still
yeah,
need a person to make those determinations,
yeah,
right?
and yeah, and it's modern.
But I think the benefit of what's happening at least now is there is choice. I mean, if you want something more ethically done, I mean, there's cage-free eggs, there's organic products like, for animals that were fed properly and all this stuff. Like, you can find the things you want to find if that's what you care about. And the problem is, when you get down to it, is like, yeah, if you want organic and all cage-free and all this stuff, you're gonna pay a premium for it.
Yeah,
And that premium is just because the people who make that product, who do that farming, they have to pay more to ensure that.
yeah,
So it's always going to get passed down, like unless you have government subsidizing these things and whatever, like, which then they have control over, and then you get things like the post office, um, like, or the VA, like things that just don't work the way they should because the government has its fingers in it, right? Like, so it's really hard to come to good solutions because corporations get big and greedy and ruin things, and government also doesn't handle things properly. So it's hard to find a middle ground where things are run in a way that benefits consumers more than it benefits other people. And I think,
Yeah.
you know, that's where some of the ideas of like too big to fail come in, and like companies shouldn't get too big to where they fail, because we as consumers will say, well, we don't agree with what you're doing, like you're going to go out of business because nobody wants to buy from you. And that's
Mm.
how it should work. And it doesn't always work that way, but like that's how our system is set up to work, right? Is like we as consumers dictate the market, but it becomes a problem when corporations dictate their own markets because
Yeah.
they own the market, you know?
Yeah, and to like and specifically consumers in the United States feel like they're there to serve the market, and it's really the other way around. The market is there to serve the consumer. Like, I'm a bit of an extremist, like I said before. Like, I really feel like back in as early as the 1950s and 60s, like it was still on the average that most Americans were able to procure most of their own food. A lot of Americans had their own gardens. A lot of Americans even had their own chicken coops for, like I said, healthy eggs, but also because chickens are really good at regulating their own environment. They help us. They naturally eat pests. They destroy termite mounds. Like, they go after poisonous spiders because their feathers can't be penetrated by most, like, bug fangs. They're a great predator to have around. They even eat mosquitoes, and and they produce eggs for us, and they're great. And I don't know. I feel like just a lot of people need to start. I feel like we should start going back to that in mass, where there's some like, and also, but there's like a serious issue with land expansion in this country, where we're kind of in a place right now where it's impossible to build new housing that's affordable.
Oh,
Everyone wonders,
well, yeah. I mean,
and
the thing is, like, with chickens, if people want to have them,
mm,
they can have them. That's the thing, right? Like, I mean, unless you live in a place that doesn't allow it. But
yeah,
then if that's something you really care about and you want to be able to do your own, have your own chickens and lay their eggs and all that stuff, like, then you would want to live somewhere where that's a possibility. Like, if that's your priority, right?
yeah,
Um, and it just gets difficult because it's like, on one side you'll have people say, well, if that's what you care about, then you'll work hard enough to earn it and get it and blah blah blah. And you have people on the other side say, yeah, but not everybody has those opportunities and things get passed by. And it's like, there's never, like I said, there's never a perfect solution. But you are right about the housing market. It's a fucking nightmare. How is it?
and
Go ahead.
no, no, it's just to say it also, like, it's regulations down from the state that obviously need to be looked at and updated. We're still looking at environmental policies from, like, the 80s and 90s and such like that. And also at the same time, we have developers that are unwilling to unwilling to build smaller housing units that are more affordable. Every single new housing construction around the Bay Area is a two-story. It's a two-story, four-bedroom, like, 2.5 bath, like basically a mega mansion.
Well, that's because of
And they don't,
zoning laws, though. The
they
Bay Area
don't
has shit zoning laws.
zoning laws, and they need to be making, like, what happened to all the one-story bachelor pads they used to make in tract homes back in, like, the 70s and 60s, and they just don't build those anymore. And
Well, not only that, the ones that they do build, even here where I live,
hmm,
no one can afford that. Like, the problem is, like, obviously people can, because we as consumers determine that market. Like, with
hmm,
housing, people are buying them, but it's the richest people. They're buying them to invest.
they're
Not
buying
no
them and turning them into
like
renters, and
that
stealing the American dream from
when you
others.
talk
That's
about
basically what.
the dwindling middle class, right? Like,
Mm,
I, if you look at my wife and I, we've both worked hard. We make well over $100,000 a year combined.
yes,
We cannot afford a house.
yeah,
We can't. Like, we just can't in this area. We just can't afford a house. We don't
yeah,
even live in the Bay Area, where it'd be much more expensive. The average price of a house where I live now is 600K,
mm,
over 600K. You look at close places like Reno, 600K average house price.
yeah. And to look at the situation that's going on in Canada. It's in Canada, like, everyone talks about Canada being, like, a great place to live, but at the end of the day, the housing market there is just going to a place where they're starting to suffer from their own serious issue with homelessness in major metropolitan areas because regular Canadians are getting priced out of the market because of investors. And I don't know, like it's getting to a point where I feel like it should be like you need to entertain offers from individuals before you entertain offers from investors first. But
Well,
and that boils down to authoritarianism because at the end of the day, the investors are going to pay you 100K over what you want, and naturally, of course, you're going to take that offer first because you want 100,000 more dollars.
yeah,
And
I
that's
mean,
that's another serious issue too. Is like at the end of the day, like if Americans it's owning a home is such an integral part of the American dream, but it feels like our generation is being quickly closed off from it solely because of boomers not
well,
wanting to get rid of their retirement funds to dry up because
even
they were
then,
fiscally irresponsible.
even if you can't afford a house, I mean, you'll be lucky to afford rent.
Yeah,
Like,
and if you do, it'll be like 2/3 of what you're making.
right? Like you're gonna like that. I don't know if like the younger generations are experience like if they've been stupid with their money and have got themselves in debt. But if you have credit card debt, forget about anything. Like you have a car payment, you have credit card debt, like you can't afford shit. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
Like and if you're making like even $20 an hour, you're still struggling on that.
they even said like early this year, it said it's now more expensive to have a kid than it has been at any other time in American life, and where it's almost impossible, even with two full-time working adults, it would be almost impossible to give that child everything that you guys grew up with, in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, like common amenities, just
Right.
because of and again,
Well,
this boils down to
the
just
thing
how
is,
consumer goods are marketed and priced and everything like that. Like there are some necessities that need to be. I don't know. See this thing. They do this in France. And France is a pretty chunky population because they basically say if you're willing to come here and fight for us for 3 years, you can become a French citizen. And the population keeps growing exponentially year after year. And the French government gives new parents here's a 6 month supply of diapers, and here's a bunch of baby formula, and also there's we can give you guys a babysitter for free. It'll just come in and watch your kid for a few if you guys want to go out and take a break, you just need to contact. And as far as I'm aware, considering French people aren't complaining about these governmental services. They're complaining about fuel prices, and I don't know. I guess they don't like Macron because they think he's kind of self-centered, arrogant. I don't know, but there are other places in the world that show examples of where the fact that the average citizen is under a lot of stress, and there are steps that the government can do to alleviate that stress, and it just doesn't happen here, and I don't know why.
I
I
don't
don't know why.
I don't like people use like things all the time. Like look at this country and like look
Mm,
at what they do. And the thing is, like those countries still aren't America. Even if it works there, I don't know if it would work here.
yeah,
Especially because like if you're comparing to France, right? Like we have 350 million people. They have what, like 10? You know?
more in the 20 range, but
Yeah.
that's just a matter of scaling up, though. At the end of the day, if this is supposed to be the greatest country in the world and
Well,
we can't
it's not
provide these
just
amazing,
scaling up. It's
yeah,
you have to get the majority of people to agree on it
yeah, and
because
that's
it needs to be voted on, right? Like, and even then we have states' rights, which is a
mm,
whole different matter, right? So it's not like France where like the government can just say we're going to do this and they do it and it applies to everybody and then they raise their taxes or whatever.
mm,
Here it's like the federal government is never going to make that stand. States have the ability to make that stand on their own, but they have to get it put on a ballot. They have to overcome all, whatever. They have to worry about if their voters are going to continue to vote for them if they do that, and all this other stuff. Like, obviously, there's a lot of bullshit political things involved, but like
yeah,
states are able to make those decisions, but they just don't,
yeah.
right? Or if
And
they
when they
do,
do,
like
when they
people
do,
still
people
have to
call
vote
them
on it, right?
or people call them oh, you're just an authoritarian extremist, trying to take your money. And I don't know. It's just when you look around and you see crumbling infrastructure, you walk into our courts and you see just the pathetic state that they're in. You see stressed out public defenders whose wages, they're buried in student debt, and God, it's just
Student debt's another one, dude. And let me tell
everything
you,
is so fucked up in this country, and I just don't I don't see the way out. And then people say it's the richest country in the world because we provide freedom. Freedom to what? Get into massive loads of debt because you're not giving any other options. So it's basically like corporate fascism at this point.
yeah.
If you don't make enough money, you get put out on the street. Everyone thinks you're a freeloader, and you die a horrible, painful death, usually from dehydration. if you don't have enough money. That's what happens, and that
Let me let me tell you something about student loans. All right, I don't have student loans, but my wife does.
Hmm.
And the federal government's brilliant plan to relieve student loan debt, right? Because with COVID, they put like payments on hold and all that stuff, right? And their brilliant plan to have student loan relief was to take everybody's student loans and move them to a different company, right? And my wife's got moved to this other company,
They should have moved him to a paper shredder.
And it auto enrolled her in income-based repayment. And because we're married, they determined it based on our combined income. Her payments went from $300 a month to $700 a month. And not only that, they auto-enrolled her in auto pay, even though she chose to not have to pay back until May, when you don't have. That's the new, right, when you have to re-enroll in student loans.
Yep.
They even sent her a letter saying, we will not charge your card, and still did it fucking twice. So fuck this shit, man. $1,400 down the fucking drain for some bullshit. Hey, how's that for relief?
And also, like, healthcare. Like, I was hearing my mom she's diabetic type 1, or whatever the permanent type is. That's type 1, right? So, like,
one you're born with and one you give to yourself. Type 1 is the one you're born with.
She's a type 1 diabetic. Like, they changed the insulin that she's been on forever without her permission, without telling her. Like, just saying, hey, we're changing your average supply and the brand that you're used to and everything else about it, because what are you going to fucking do about it? Like, that's what it boils down to at the end of the day. And it just seems like, I don't know, like, I know it's a big fancy, like, blow word, but it really just seems like corporate fascism is right around the fucking corner, where basically the consumer isn't given any other option, and we have nothing we can do about it.
I think I think they're both really bad, right? Like, because with your mom, it's corporations being stupid and like taking advantage of people who need things to survive,
or else her feet fall off and she goes fucking blind.
Right. And in my wife's case, it's the fucking federal government doing it. Like, it's like these things. People, this is why I can't ever get down
government. Like, federal government that's beholden to some of these companies. Like, they prioritize these companies because they say that, we employ 20,000 Americans. What are you going to do? Fire 20,000 Americans?
But they're doing it in the name of self-interest of people who have student loan debt. Like, we're helping you guys. We're relieving your student loan debts and all this stuff. Yeah. Motherfucker, you put a bigger economic strain on us. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Like, the problem is, too, the only way to really change this is if young people run for political office, and young people can't fucking do that, because if they do, they wouldn't make any money, because they would have to quit their jobs, because campaigning is something where you have campaigning is a full-time job.
Also pay to win.
Yeah, also pay to win. Whoever has the most money is able to get in front of the most faces wins. And also, you make appeals. There's some people that make appeals to, like, the worst members of our society for some reason, and then those people are the ones that are most likely to go out and vote, because the average American just doesn't have the fucking time to go out and vote, because they're too busy working. Because if they don't work, they get put out on the street and they die of dehydration. So
if you have a house already, then you're in a pretty good spot. But if you ever have any ambitions to buy a house, especially here in California, you're never gonna make it.
Well, and two, also, there are a lot of people that are able to lock down loans, and I will admit that interest rates are the lowest that they've ever been, like, ever. Like, it means, like, essentially you'll be paying almost the exact amount, like, but at the end of the day, the housing market could crash tomorrow because of some stupid fucking thing that happens.
I can hope.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. That's another thing I don't like about this country is it's turning the younger generations into fiscal cannibals, where we're all sitting around waiting to eat the older generations alive.
But I don't like that either. I
don't like that either.
I think you put too much. Like, you should never leave your life up to hoping something happens. Like, the thing is, like, it's really unhelpful to say to a lot of people, but, like, there are things I could do more to help, right? Like, I can take extra money I have that I'm not putting in savings and invest it into mutual funds or whatever that have like 6 to 7% rate return, and just like let it mature and like become something more, or like do something smart with my money to make it do something. Like, the only way to really survive right now and be able to buy a house or make a lot of money is to get passive income somehow. And that's the thing, is like, no matter how hard you work, you're never gonna necessarily, like, within a year, I could easily be making over 100 grand myself, like just through promotions and everything else. And even then, I still won't be able to buy a fucking house.
Yeah, like
It's just too expensive. Like, so
and two, at the end of the day, also like the opinion to Wall Street was, well, maybe everyone should be in the stock market. You've had arguments against why everyone should be in the stock market. My other issue too is that the stock market is fucking complicated. It's almost like arcane. It's almost like dealing with arcane magic at this point. Wheeling a deal in fucking.
And again, it's the concept of you have to spend money to make money, and most people don't have fucking money.
Yeah.
Like, not only do you have to put money into an investment, like if you really want to make money in the stock market, you need to get a financial advisor. Like, you need to know how to diversify your stocks. You need to understand, short sells. You need to understand, all these different concepts. And even then, you might lose money because investing in the stock market per se isn't really that safe. Like, if you want to make sure that your money is safe, you have to invest in like mutual funds and things like that. I mean, and again, like, these are things that people should teach you in school, but don't teach you. Instead, we argue about how terrible Florida is because they don't want you learning about, transsexuality or gayness until after the 3rd grade or whatever their law
or they
is.
teach you a really whitewashed version of history that starts with ancient Greece and nothing else, and no other society ever existed before then.
I think people talk about like how high school should teach about taxes and stuff, but like, why don't they also teach you about like finances in general? Because like, most people don't know that you're allowed to pull money out of your 401k without penalty to invest in a primary residence of dwelling, like for like a down payment. I mean, I think there's still issues with that because that's something that brokers and mortgage advisors will tell you and stuff. What they don't tell you is you do have to repay that. It comes out of your paycheck, like a normal whatever, and I don't know if they take more or whatever to recount for the loss of whatever you had in there, but you can use that money without like paying a percentage of it like as a penalty. Like, you normally it's like, oh, if I have an IRA or whatever, like retirement fund, and I want to pull my money out before I'm 55, 65, whatever, I have to pay like 30% or something crazy, right? But it's the same like 401ks. Like, you're not really allowed to pull your money out necessarily, but you can, without penalty, to buy a house as like a down payment. Most people don't know that. You probably know that because, you're in real estate, but.
Yeah, and most people don't know how to lock down a really good loan either.
Yeah.
Like you said, some people feel like they only can buy a house with cash, and that's not how any house transaction works.
Well, in the modern day, too, most people just go to like Redfin or Zillow or whatever and think that that's how you buy a house, but like, and I'm not trying to like, be a shill for the realtors out there. I'm not being a shill for chair here, but if you really want to buy a house, you have to get a good realtor because they have, not only do they have access to houses that are not on the market yet, they have access to other resources. Yeah. And like, that's what real estate agents do. They don't only find you a house for you, they network. They know people that can help you.
Like, if there's an issue with the house, like, we know people for construction, we can connect you with good genuine lenders that are part of smaller lending companies that aren't in any way connected to Wall Street, because at the end of the day, Wall Street is just, I don't know why so many people dump so much money in Wall Street, because I've never seen a group of people I trust less with my money.
Well, and if you do already have a lot of money and you want to invest, that's even better. Real estate agents can help you find a property management company. They can help you find good worksmen, because like, if you're renting out a house that's somewhere you don't live, you're not going to be the one going there to fix the roof and the toilet and what, like, they'll hook you up with the people that they trust.
Yeah, and also the good thing about realtors is that we don't, we kind of have to tell you the truth, or else we can't fucking sell real estate. If there's a serious issue with the house, there's these things called disclosures. There's like 30 of them, all right? And honestly, most of the time, I'm not okay with innate bureaucracy, but in this case, I totally am, because it basically, you need to disclose every problem with the house, because if there's like, the plumbing explodes tomorrow, like the day after, because you put a bunch of duct tape on it, and then nobody, we require inspections, we require appraisers, all these things are good.
Yeah,
but
before like the market really blew up, we were actually looking at a house. Like, it was like a duplex, and it was like 300K or whatever, like pretty pretty affordable, but still expensive for a duplex, obviously.
Yeah.
And we were like, we put an offer on everything, and then the inspection came back and said like the plumbing in the house would need to be replaced within a year, or it would like explode.
Yep.
And it's not the city's responsibility; it would be ours, and it's like $25,000 to fix. And we're
Yeah.
like, well, this is a problem we don't really want to pay for, so we didn't actually buy it.
And that means a realtor was also able to enable you guys to walk away. That's
Yeah,
another thing about real estate is like, when you just want to walk away from a deal, it sucks. It sucks for the realtor because honestly, they put in a lot of time, but it's about empowering consumers. That's like the name of the game. It really is. Because if you have a shit real estate agent that's just going to dump you in a shitty house that you don't know anything about, that has this super weird, the title of the house is a super weird history. The construction companies weren't licensed that did any work on it, and they just go up and leave. They've kind of screwed over a consumer, and they've just made your life genuinely worse. And you gotta keep an eye out for those ones, man. Don't fucking work with realtors. If their brokerage only has like 2 people and their name's on it, don't work with them. That's all I gotta say. Damn.
well, I've kept you here for a long time.
I'm gonna go eat some lasagna.
We've spent a lot of time being millennials and complaining about our plight in life.
Yeah, well, and also it just feels like because at the end of the day, it really does feel like we're going to be one of the first generations of Americans that actually is being told to expect less out of life, not more. Like because of just because of the nature of the market and the nature of the fact that a lot of older people made a lot of really poor financial decisions. And I'm not saying when they're 20s. In your 20s, you can do whatever the fuck you want, dude. It's all about what you do in your 30s that really fucking matters for the long-term investment for your retirement. Like it's just the 20s, man. Party, have a good time, drink and make merry. People. It's a good thing about
If I'm
but
honest though, I wish I would have saved more money when I was like
we all
18 to 25.
we all could have made better decisions when we were young, but also at the time we can recognize that and we can make changes and we can implement those changes in our lives, and also our bodies aren't completely failing us to a point where we need to
I
have
make
certain.
myself feel better by lying to myself and saying I was investing my money in comic books.
Yeah, well,
Some of them
it
might
also
be worth money one day.
it also helps you be an interesting person. It means you wanted to enjoy life. That's the thing. No one talks about how much outrageous amounts of money that older people spend on cars in their youth. It was a lot. It was a lot of money, and on
Yeah. Also, that like buying a new or used car, what a nightmare. People.
yeah,
The thing is, it's really easy to not get stuck in a payment you're not comfortable with. It's very easy, but people just don't know how. Like they go and they're scared and they think this is the price. This is what I'm stuck with. They have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, but just to finish my thought real quick, though, what I'm saying is that there were a lot of people from the past generations that are acting extremely fiscally irresponsible into their 40s and 50s. And to a point now where, now they're getting 60 and 70, like, oh, I need this, 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 and this still. And, back in the day, retiring, it used to be where you just kind of moved in with, your kids or something like that, or you found, a little ramshackle home you could live in. Because the idea was that you moved out of the way for the next generations.
Or your kids pay $5,000 a month to put you in a retirement home or senior living.
Yeah, or you go to a state one where you do BS. But I don't know, man. There's so many messed up things in this country, and I hope we can pull out of it. Because at the end, and this is a little dark, but I feel like there's an epidemic coming for this country, and that epidemic's name is suicide. And I feel like it's going to impact the younger generations more than it's going to impact anyone else. Because at the end. There are a lot of young people that just don't know what to do. They're constantly getting backed into corners. They constantly don't know what to do with themselves, and the politicians tell them, "Oh, we're not here for you. We're actually here to serve older people."
Well, it's not only that. I mean, let's be honest. There is a mental health crisis going on as it is, and it's just older generations don't believe in mental health. They just a lot. It's not just Americans, right? This is a huge issue in Asian countries.
Yeah,
they just think mental health is made up.
Yeah,
you they think you're just choosing to be sad or choosing to be anxious and stuff, and it's these are real issues. There's a real thing. So, but even in America, older generations, hey, well, when I was your age, I had to put up with a bunch of shit, and you're just being a bitch.
Yeah, I suffered, so now my kids have to suffer. What a great way of thinking about the world.
Yeah, lots of people think that way though. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I had to go through it, and I turned out okay, so you should have to go through it. Yeah, you turned out great. Wishing ill on people. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I
So
really need to take a break because I still can't smoke weed for the next 30 days. So I really need to probably move away from this conversation.
fun. All right.
Yeah,
Well, thanks for everybody who listened to
ranting.
the not nerdy parts and everything else. But yeah, if you enjoyed, you can follow. Please follow. We need follows, so then we can
Yeah,
make money one day. But that probably
yeah.
won't
So
happen.
we can make money and immediately sell out and move into a big house that we can't afford, and then just crash and burn, baby. That's just like
Totally.
declare bankruptcy.
Yeah. So follow, and you can follow. You can, if you listen to podcasts anywhere, Apple Podcasts, Google, whatever, Pandora, Spotify, you can look up the Nerd Ledger there if you want just an audio version. But anyway, thanks to everybody for tuning in. Much love. Thanks, Chair. Goodbye, everyone. Peace out.
Peace.